Part 2. Origins. It is intuitive of many to conflate the government of one's country with the society of the peoples, with little or no distinction between the two. This is a mistake, as the two are not only different and distinct in principle, but also in origin. Society is produced by our wants, government by our wickedness. The former promotes our happiness positively by uniting our affections, the latter negatively by restraining our vices. One encourages intercourse, while the other highlights distinctions. The first, a patron; the last, a punisher. Society is always a blessing, while government at its best is a necessary evil. Otherwise, it is an intolerable one. For when we suffer or are exposed to miseries by our government, in which we would expect from a country with no government of the people, our calamity is only heightened by the fact that we have supplied the means to our own ruin. Government, like the dressing of Adam and Eve, is the badge for lost innocence. For if everyone simply acted in a forthright, irresistible, and uniform manner, then no other rule maker besides one's own creator would be necessary. This not being the case, we find it necessary to give up a portion of one's rights to forward a government that will protect the rest of the rights. In this, one will, as in all other cases, preside with the lesser of two evils. Security, being the designed role of government, enables us to weigh the costs of our lost rights with the benefit of security. In order for us to have a clear and simple example of a just government with clear constraints in end, let us create an example. Suppose a small community of people settled in some remote part of the world with no connection to the outside. They will represent the first people of any country or the world. In this state of freedom and mutual liberty, society will be the first step, for a plethora of individual goals will drive cooperation. A single man being so unequal to their wants, and the mind being so unfitted for perpetual solitude, will be obligated to seek the help and companionship of another, who will in turn seek the same. With 4 or 5 united, a tolerable living could be established in the middle of any wilderness, for one man who perpetually labors the day away may accomplish nothing. When he falls his timber, he may not remove it, for the weight being too great, or if he does, he may not erect it into a proper shelter. Hunger will drive him away from his work, and every different want will call him a different way. Disease or even simple misfortune may lead to death. While neither may be deadly on their own, they will tear him away from his work, and reduce him to a state where he may perish rather than die. This truth, like gravitating power, would quickly pull our group of immigrants into a society where the reciprocal nature of their intertwined survival would render government and laws unnecessary, while they remain perfectly just to each other. But as nothing is impregnable to vice, it is unavoidable that as they surpass the difficulties of early survival that had bound them together, they will, in proportion, begin to relax in their duties and obligations to each other. This will point out the necessity of establishing some form of government in order to circumvent the defect of moral virtue. A convenient tree will be established as their first state house, where they shall gather under the branches of and deliberate on public matters. It will be more than probable that their first laws will be no more than regulations, and only carry the punishment of public disesteem. In this first Congress, everyone by natural right will have a seat, but as the colony grows, the public concerns will grow likewise. This will point out the convenience of them consenting the legislative part to a few selected representatives, chosen from the whole body, who supposedly have the same concerns at stake and would act as the whole colony would act if they were present. As the colony increases in size yet again, it will become necessary for the number of representatives to be augmented, and as to see to it that the interest of every part of the colony is attended to, it will prove most convenient to divide the colony into convenient parts, each part choosing and sending a representative of proper number, and that the elected never come to form themselves into an interest group separate from their electors. Prudence will point out the need for elections to be held often and terms limited, because as the elected, by those means, may return to mingle with the body that they represent every few months, their faithfulness to the public will be of utmost concern, as to not make themselves a lightning rod. This frequent interchange will establish a common interest for all peoples of the community. They will mutually and naturally support each other. On this, not on the meaningless name of party nor figurehead, depends the strength of government and on the happiness of its people. This is the origin and rise of government, defined as a mode rendered necessary by the inability of moral virtue to govern the world. This is the design and end of government, to establish security for the people and business while ensuring the utmost freedom of its people. And however our eyes may be dazzled by performance, or our ears deceived by lies and falsehoods, however prejudice may warp our will, interest of our understanding, a simple voice of nature and reason will say, "It is right." I draw my conclusions of government from a principle in nature which no artist nor engineer could ever surpass, being that the more simple anything is, the less likely it will be to break down, and easier to repair when broken down. With this maxim in view, I offer a few remarks on the boasted and amazing United States Constitution, which was and is noble for the dark enslaved times it was written, and when the world is filled with tyranny and fake republics, it is a bastion of hope. But that it is imperfect. Granted that the document has provided a simple solution to the fixing of itself, that in being the First and Second Amendment, it has now established a government so bloated and intricate that finding the proper problem has become nearly impossible for everyone. Will be of different opinion of what the issue is and where it lies. It is susceptible to be used or rewritten in a manner that would attack and dismay the very people it was made to defend, as it did with prohibition and the centuries it took for it to include all mankind as it was previously written. Its vagueness, intent on being the defender against obsolescence, has become the very much favored weapon of those who intend on destroying it. It has conceded its simplicity to lawmakers who have written it into a complex, contradicting document that is far from its original design of being a defense of the people against its government, and perverted it into the government's chosen privileges for the governed. I know it is difficult to get over local and long-standing prejudices, but if we are to come together and suffer together, we can analyze and view two reminiscences of tyranny, the first of which is the forming of an aristocratic party, separate of the people, by allowing the representatives to make laws defending themselves against and towards the very state to which they represent. Why would a representative body feel the need to legislate special provisions for themselves when they are meant to be equal and of those who elected them? The sessions in which they convene to legislate are barred from interjection of the very people they legislate for. In this we once again see the tyranny of the very foreign crown we have escaped. The second of which, being the not so well hidden remnants of monarchy, this has taken the form of a co-centralized federal institution, being not beholden to the electors, but to their donors and fellow party members. The ability of the president to pass down on the people any order they see fit through executive means and to force compliance through the armed forces under their immediate control, or through discontinuation of state support. Although one man may no longer be of full control of the people, and no crown adorns the monarch's skull, it has become the very buildings in which our so-called leaders go to deliberate on decrees the people need not of, and to hide themselves in their own pompously adorned reality. End of part 2.